Good evening, fellow Reds. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I'm pleased to have you here. I'm pleased to have our really good guests as well. We may be getting a fourth guest, sorry, a third guest, a fourth panel guest on the show today. We'll see if that person does turn up. But yeah, do you want to let's kind of introduce everyone and we'll crack on. We've got a big game to talk about, haven't we? So an interesting one anyway. Stu, how are you?
Very well, thank you very much. Very chilled this evening. So yeah, all good, all good. Looking forward for another game tomorrow. So coming thick and fast now.
Absolutely. So let me just add in. And Stitches, how are you? You okay, mate?
Yeah, I'm great, mate. Digested the weekend result, bantered backwards and forwards with my family members and friends that are Arsenal fans. They're still crying into their teas and coffees over decisions and whatnot. But typical Gooners. What else can you expect?
Well, if it wasn't the first one, they would have got you on the second or the third offence, and even still, there was a fourth one where, what's this? Jesus was offside. So there's a fourth one for you. So if they wouldn't have got you, they would have got you something else. So plenty to kind of dismiss, or gather up all those tears. But yeah, I'm pleased to have you here. I don't think we've streamed together, so I'm pleased to have you on board. And we've got Tosin. How are you, Tosin? Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good evening.
Are you there?
Good evening, guys.
Good evening. How are you, Tosin? You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm doing well.
Good. I'm glad that you're here, so we can let's get some kind of discussion going. We've got an interesting game. It's the first of a double header with Brighton Hove Albion. So tomorrow we are playing in the EFL Cup, the Carabao Cup, the Milk Cup, the League Cup, whatever you want to call it, depending on whether you're a new generational LFC fan or a heritage fan. It's the League Cup. It's the competition that we've won the most successful in terms of that. Obviously, we're not going to be talking about European leagues and all that jazz, but on a domestic level, we are the best in this competition historically. So I guess that kind of comes to the first question. Stu, I'll come to you on this one. How interested are you in this match? Are you fully well in? You want to win, or are you? It's nice to have a distraction. Whatever happens. We'll just wait for the weekend.
I think the way I look at it, I always looked at the the Carabao Cup or whatever you want to call it. It's always going to be the third choice trophy that anybody wants to win. Always will be. And that's third choice. Yeah, behind the FA Cup and the title. It's in domestic side.
Domestically, yes. Okay, yeah.
I think it's always going to be third choice. What I did like, obviously, in the Klopp era is that he brought a lot of youngsters through and he rotated quite heavily with that squad. But this time round, I'm kind of intrigued to see how Slot's going to go because he didn't really do that in the first game. I expect he's probably not going to do that again tomorrow with Brighton. I think the team is going to have a few changes, but nothing massive, so to speak. So that I'm intrigued to see what he's going to do with the side.
Yeah, we're going to talk about lineups and what we feel should be the lineup for tomorrow. But let's kind of gather some more thoughts from Stitches. What's your general thoughts there, Stitches? It's always obviously good to have Liverpool on the telly. Always good to have them on playing. Against any opposition, doesn't matter whether it's pre-season or the League Cup or a massive European night. It doesn't matter. Liverpool will still be there watching. But is just one of those where, again, just come back to that question. What will be. It's just one of those games, isn't it? Really. We just on mute.
My favorite trick. Yeah, absolutely. It's for me. I agree with Stu. It's low down on the priority list in terms of at the start of the season. If you ask me, what do I want in terms of haul for the season. This would be pretty low, but winning a cup is important. Ten Hag will have he's won 2 cups. Um, so people use it. But I think in terms of us as a team, Liverpool, it's not that important. But actually for Slot, potentially, it's one of the first trophies he can win, right? So, in that regard, it's very important because it gets the monkey off his back, so to speak. So in that regards, I think he will take it fairly seriously, taking into account the caliber of the opposition as well. I think we have to take them seriously or it could be embarrassing. I do know, or I've heard that they've got quite a number of injuries as well, but so did Arsenal going into the weekend.
That supposed myth.
Yeah. And we know how that ended up.
Yeah,
so
down on their luck, Arsenal, eh?
Oh, they are, even though we had more injuries than they did, but never mind that.
Yeah.
My thoughts on it is that we have to pick a fairly strong team. I think if there are some outstanding youngsters that are performing, we sprinkle them in. But I don't think we're in a position in this game to do what Klopp has done in the past and just made it heavily a youth team. I think you have to have a blend. That's number one. Number two, given that there are some fringe players that haven't had many minutes this season, it'll be a great opportunity to give them additional minutes. If I think about the left back position, potentially I'd want to see Robbo given a chance to go again, because after that performance the other day, you want to get his confidence up. Shimikas also needs minutes, so there's an argument there, but also importantly, Gomez needs minutes. So he should get a game, I think. The game's come a bit too early for Connor Bradley in terms of injury, I think. So I don't know. Can we play Gomez on the right and one of the other two on the left? Or will he play in the centre? There's so many connotations and different, selection headaches there for Slot. The midfield, it's more about who requires rest. And I think it's a good opportunity to rest Gravenberch. He's been outstanding since the start of the season, but he needs a break. So I would go with Endo in there. And then
just want to say, just pick up on that Gravenberch point. I'm really interested to see how our side operates him without him being in the side more than anything.
Yeah. I think that would be interesting to see. But I think Jones could probably get the nod. I personally would rest McAllister and go with Szoboszlai, seeing as he only played a few minutes a week. I thought, McAllister looked a bit out of sorts. I don't know if he's still carrying the niggle. I think you have to go with Nunez, just simply because he's starting to build up a head of steam in terms of his performances. Confidence is growing. He's really having an impact up there. So I'd go with him. I think you have the option to rest Salah and maybe go with Diaz inverted on that side, and then maybe Gakpo on the other side to give him a rest. But knowing Salah, he'll probably play. So it'll be probably Diaz on the left, Salah on the right, Nunez down the middle. That's what I expect to see. And then a sprinkling of youth on the bench to come in once, the game is settled and maybe we've taken a lead, just to see the game out. That's what I expect. I think we have to be respectful of the opposition. They've had a great start to the season, regardless if they've had injuries or they've got injuries or not. We have to go into this with a serious mindset. And there's a psychological play here as well, because we play them again, don't we, on the weekend?
Yeah.
So, we have to have the ability to be able to change things up somewhat, because, they're going to learn a bit about us and we'll learn a bit about them tomorrow. But then we go again on the weekend, and I think that'll be a completely different game, in the Premiership. So, yeah, I think we've got a few options there. Slot, traditionally, is not someone who likes to rotate too heavily, but I think the nature of the Premier League and all the 4 competitions that we're in requires you to manage the players a little bit more. The last thing we want to do is run players into the ground and start picking up injuries at this stage of the season. So I think he's going to have to be smart in how he shuffles his deck.
That was the most in-depth answer I've ever had while hosting the stream. But I'm glad you stole all my material, Stitches. I don't know what to talk about now for the next 50
Ah,
minutes. No, it's
sorry,
okay.
mate.
We'll get plenty out. We'll get plenty out. Tossing, I'm going to come to you about with that. There's an interesting comment. I'm going to come back on what Stitches said actually. Do you think Slot has the can be able to treat the competition like what Klopp did? Now, Klopp was very, very adamant, and we saw it. It's really until the team got into latter stages, semi-finals and finals, that he actually took the competition seriously, and that's when the big guns come in. But do you think Arne Slot can actually do that with this, with it being so early in his reign? He doesn't want to get another loss. Regardless whoever it is, but he doesn't want to lose another match because the way he goes on about Nottingham Forest, I hate to see him losing to Brighton. What do you think?
Yeah, I want to agree that I don't think he's going to want to go soft. I think he's going to want to he's going to want to play everyone possible because he will want to send a message, and he will try to go with the strongest team. I don't think he's necessary, but I think I get a sense that now he's enjoying the start to the season, and he's really beginning to embrace what it feels to be manager of Liverpool Football Club. And I think it's like dopamine for him now. Once you taste blood, it's very hard for you to go back. And if you start the way Arne Slot started, you want to keep up the momentum, and um, you don't want the fans to feel as though, okay, maybe we're taking this for granted. He's always being obsessed with perfection. When it was at final, it was the same thing. He didn't trivialize the KMVP Becker in his time there. He wanted to win it, always fielded a strong team, even though that was the early cup they were playing. So I think this is a bit different in the fact it's a League Cup, but I still don't think it matters to him in the grand scheme of things. He wants to win. So I think he will put out a team that he believes gives us the best chance of winning tomorrow. Obviously, he will rest a couple of players. So you might get to see Yaros tomorrow in goal. You might possibly get to see, just like Stitches said, you get to see Joe Gomez tomorrow because he wants to reward. You obviously will see Endo tomorrow. Maybe Curtis Jones gets more of the minutes nowadays, so you probably would see him again tomorrow as well. Maybe young Tyler Morton gets a chance, who knows? But, you get to see some of those other guys who've sat on the bench, but obviously it won't be those guys that there's a massive drop off because he's also aware that this team and with the things he said about being tested, and him also saying that this period of time he wants the players to be tuned in. I think he just lends credence to the kind of manager that he is. That he's a guy who's obsessed with perfection and wants to win regardless. So I think for me, he'd go with the team that gives him the best chance of winning. Jurgen always treated it as a tournament, especially the League Cup. It was always, what, let's play the kids. If we win, fantastic. If we don't win, fantastic. So, but Arna I think, has a different approach. He wants to win it. He shows you that he wants to win it.
No, that's good. No, I like that, and I like the mentality that Slot has, and I think he will take it very, very seriously in the sense that he would want to win. Um, so yes, there's some great points in the chat. The said it's good, always good to see you, mate, and I think that is our very own Stu just talking there. I'm sure. We've got some great points going on for anyone in the chat. If this is the first time you come to listening to us, hit those likes, hit those subscribes. Come join us on the journey. We throughout the season we have lots of streams. I stream every night. We've got a second one early on in Wednesday morning, coming like late tonight, depending on where you are in the world. So that's a 2 a.m. UK time stream, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, or it just depending on obviously the British Standard Time and the clocks going back on the weekend. So just kind of, if you are interested, just have a look at that. So yeah, just thank you for joining. Okay, so let's kind of talk about Brighton and how good they are. So I was really interested to have a look at the previous fixtures that we've had recently over them, and it's not great. You know, the last time that we played them was back in March, where we had a 2-1 win at home. But other than that, you know, the previous four fixtures, we drew 3-3 at Anfield. I remember that when Trossard got a hat trick, and I just don't understand how that happened. A 3-0 loss followed that, and then that pretty poor 2-1 defeat to Brighton, where Matoma scored that really good goal, making Joe Gomez look silly, and then a draw 2-2. So they score lots of goals past us, guys. Makes me worried about Brighton themselves, how good they are. They can cause us trouble. You know, Stu, just looking at that fixtures, the last 5, we've only won 1. Okay, was the last one you can only go by your last game, and we are a different beast compared to what we have been in the last 2-3 seasons under Klopp. Are you worried? In terms of the double header, yeah, I'm sure the preference would be league first and then the cup, but it would be good not to lose the League Cup game going into the league game. It's just the situation. If it was the other way around, we would probably treat this differently, wouldn't we?
I think there's actually many facets to this, like sort of whichever way you look at it. If we win at home, we beat Brighton, we get that nice little psychological boost before we play Brighton again on the weekend for the league game. But then that obviously flips around if they beat us, and then that also works against us because we've lost another home game.
Yeah.
As well. Slot will not want that on his record because we've had an absolutely outstanding start of the season. We really have. And only that one blip with Forest, he won't want another blip being Brighton at home. I think perhaps losing a game is easier to stomach when you're away, but the home record would be very, very important to him. As you say, you can only go by like sort of when we played them last, which we did beat them, but we don't have the best of records. I was just looking at a couple of other stats. It's still edging in our favour, but it will be a tough game. And Fabian Schürrle has got, I really unexpectedly, actually, I didn't know what to expect. I mean,
same.
The guy's a 31-year-old manager who's never played professional football, and now he's in charge of one of the most up-and-coming teams in the Premier League. And he's got them absolutely purring, and all the credit to him. So I fully expect it's going to be a really tough game tomorrow. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, what a contrast. And I know it was a bit of banter before the stream started, but there's such a difference between Brighton and a certain team up the M62 who also play in red, and the debacle that United go through. They've just sacked Ten Hag today. It looks like Amorim is coming in. You know, after initial discussions were that Ruud van Nistelrooy was gonna take over as an interim manager. Just the contrast between the two clubs. One doesn't really tend to spend. One spends very, very heavily, and it's just a very, very good club. I'm so impressed with the manager. I'm impressed with the club and how they operate. You know, we probably all say the same thing, don't we? Over the years, and they're just a really, really good team, and they have got really, really good results against us. So yeah, you know, it's one of those. Tosin, are you worried? Stitches are going to come to you last on this one, so we can get a really, really good definitive answer from you after. But Tosin, what are your thoughts about the Brighton team? Just looking at some of their big guns that are going to be out. So Donkey's going to be out. He looks like he's injured in the last game. Minte may be out. He has a chance. Hinselwood could be back as well. You know, they've got injuries themselves, but what do you think they will do?
I would lie if I say that I'm not worried about Brighton and Hove Albion. That would be a blatant lie, because just like Stu said, I mean, they got a manager that everyone's thinking, how on God's green earth is he doing it? But as much as I'm worried, they're also a team that I know that if we play the way we want to play, you obviously will be able to get results against them, because you will score. They will always concede goals. And you look at the way they set up most of the times in a 4-4-2, sometimes in a 4-3-3. I'm particularly concerned with Ethan Ferguson and the fact that now he's finally found his scoring boots after about 50 years. And he just somehow finds it just when they're about to play Liverpool twice in the space of a week. I'm a big fan of Julio Enciso. I like the way he plays because he plays the right way. Carlos Baeba in midfield is a guy that you find his physical profile is very rare. So you sort of begin to look at that and say, they've got the energy. If he picks that strong 11, I think he will want to pick that strong 11. They've also gotten some results at the start of this season that gives them a bit of confidence to say we can match up against the big boys. And the way it's got them playing, they're a pressing team. They like to let you know that they're there, especially when Danny Welbeck plays in front, so he presses aggressively. And then in terms of their transitions from defense to attack, so it's interesting enough for me from the way they play, and in terms of the way they also use the ball. They're not afraid to try to play out from the back. They're not afraid to mix it up as well, go long when they need to, and in behind when they have the advantage, obviously, and when they're in the lead, they are a team that you've got to be very wary about, especially on the counter. So you look at the situation, for example, at the weekend against Wolves, where they had a 4-on-1 and botched it, and Wolves went straight down the other end and scored. That's not going to happen every time. So, you know, but that's a team that's very dangerous. So you try to not let them take the lead. People are celebrating that Minte is injured, but they've got a certain Simon Adingra there as well, the Ivorian, who's equally just as dangerous.
He's very good.
So I think looking at the profile of the players, I like them, the way Estupinian, you know, helps to create overloads on the left. They've got Joel Veltman as well, who's quite an interesting profile of a player. I love the way they play. I lie if I say I don't, but I think it's why I'm a bit concerned about it. I'll be honest, of all the games that people were talking about in the run of games that people were saying, oh, Liverpool are going to get killed. I told them the only two games I'm worried about are Brighton in the Cup and Brighton in the league. And it is because, just like the record you said, this team is a well-coached team. And by well-coached, I mean extremely well-coached. The players understand game state. They understand how they can sequence the ball in terms of what they need to do, even if they're down. So for me, I'm concerned, but I also think we should have just enough to be able to see them out. It will be very tactical. It will be very detail-oriented, and it will be a game that's determined by the small details.
Yeah, no, really, really, really good answer to that one. That's an interesting way of putting it as well. So, do you think, Stitches? I'm going to bring the Klopp point of view back to you as well. So, whereas last year, taking what Tossie and what Stu have already said, you know, being worried about Brighton are going to be playing a different Liverpool team, whereas it's not helter-skelter, it's not heavy metal football where we leave everyone in the back, you know, open at the back. We allow Trent to be isolated, or Konate in terms of Trent being inverted in the midfield. whereas now Trent's got a little bit more responsibility at right back. Whether he plays, I don't think he will play. I think we'll wait for him to come back on the weekend in the league game. But as much as we fear Brighton, surely they've got to look at us and say, right, they're a different team. They are able to pass pass teams to death. Possession based football, a little bit more calmer. Those are things that are going to be in our favour, that will play against Brighton and their game plan, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I think we're all clear on this podcast the level of respect that we have to give to Brighton, and quite rightly, my colleagues on the podcast have mentioned the manager and what a fantastic job he's doing. But all that being said, we are Liverpool FC. And really and truly, as dangerous as Brighton is, that's a team we should be looking to beat. I think they have some players who in specific positions kind of coincide with what I would say is the weakest aspects of our team, which is in the fullback areas at this moment in time. Tosin mentioning a Dringa is very, very apt, because on his game, he's an absolute problem. I watched him in the African nations against my home nation, Nigeria, and he destroyed us completely. So if you let him play, he's going to be a problem. And let's not forget that Mitoma absolutely lit up the league, before his injury, and he's starting to come back to his best as well. However, that being said, I think our new approach of being controlled in the match will help us deal with that somewhat better. And if you look at the injuries that they've got, I think one of the biggest injuries for them is Lewis Dunk. He's an absolute leader in their defense, and everything kind of starts from him, from the goalkeeper. Despite his profile, which, one might be forgiven for thinking he's just a lump and a brute of a player, he's actually quite refined in his passing range and the ability to withstand pressure and then play out from the back. Now, I don't know who they're going to bring in to replace him if he doesn't have the match, if he doesn't make the match. So that will be interesting. But I think in our attacking positions, we have enough tools ourselves to absolutely cause them some devastation, especially where we're able to control and maybe break the press, because they're going to press us high. And if we can play through that and then get the ball into our wide men or our forward line, I think it's going to be absolute, mayhem for them. I expect Núñez to have an absolute storming game. I think he's high on confidence. He seems a bit more relaxed. He's not trying to do everything at 100 miles per hour anymore. There seems to be a bit more sort of playmaker, forward, hold-up play added to his game, which is going to help us. And that assist and the goal that he got in the match before that, I think it's all helping build his confidence. Slot has obviously been working with him quite a lot. We didn't see him in the early parts of the season, but we're starting to see a bit more of him now. So I think we have enough tools. It's going to be a interesting battle in midfield, because we mentioned Baliba already. But I think, Endo can be underestimated, but he's very good at destroying and getting amongst them, being a pest. And I think we're going to need that against Brighton. And then it's really about the other two midfielders and how creative they can be. We certainly know that they can get amongst it, and their work rate's going to be exemplary. They're going to cover the ground. They're going to make tackles. They're going to track back. But it's really what they do when we have the ball that's going to make a difference. In opposite view to Stu, whether we win or lose, I always hate playing the same team twice, because I feel that there's so much tactical knowledge and nuances that I learned in the first game that the second game is never quite straightforward. That being said, I think in Slot we have a master tactician. And I've seen in every single game that we've played, wherever we go through a period of problems or strife on the pitch, he's able to tweak and make changes that impact the game. And he seems to do it very quickly. So I'm relying on that. And he's slightly more experienced than the manager of the opposition to see us through. Because I don't think that, bar that first half against Arsenal last on the weekend, I haven't seen him being out tacticked yet. So that would be interesting. And I think, Brighton, just to go back to them for one more second, they're a team that's going to give a lot of people problems. They're going to give, same as Nottingham Forest. We threw our toys out of the pram when we lost to Nottingham Forest, but having watched them since then, I know that Nottingham Forest are going to cause a lot of people problems as well. So this is what it is. They keep saying that we haven't had any tests in our fixtures until recently, but as Slot said when he showed a bit of teeth, to the journalists the other day, before he came into the league, they told him this league was a difficult league, but all of a sudden every week it's going to be, this will be the test, and he keeps passing them. He keeps passing all the tests. So I expect more of the same. I think he's not, again, just to go back, not going to make too many changes because to disrupt the flow. I think our defense is going to be tested, but I think we've got enough to be able to offer equal, if not more, threat going the other way, and I think that'll see us through.
I love that. I love the answer there, Stitches. Thank you. Yeah. But I'm going to come to the first bit of lineup discussion. It might throw out the idea that Slot's not going to change it around too much. Goalkeeper, Alisson's not available, so we know that. Kelleher, I'm gonna come to Stu first. Would you go for Kelleher first, or would you bring in someone like Jaros?
Yeah, no, I think it'll still go for Kelleher. To be honest, I don't think Jaros is ready. I don't know. Is he? He did have a good little stint for when we played Palace, and he didn't do too badly there. So maybe, but put my gut saying Kelleher for this one.
Yeah, no. So you're going to go with Kelleher first. Stitches, what are you going to say?
I think you play the opposition that you're facing, and we have to give them the respect they deserve. And that's no slight on Jaros. I think he did a good job when he came on, as you mentioned, Stu. I don't think we've seen enough of him for me to be able to say yet, if he's really at the level of Kelleher or even pushing. I think he did well. And I saw him in pre-season. I thought he did well. He's a presence, big lad. But I think we're going to have to go with Kelleher on this one. I just think you need a bit of continuity in that defense, given the amount of changes that are going to be made. Now that I'm actually thinking about it, I actually think Van Dijk's going to play. I'm thinking that. I'm thinking Van Dijk's going to play. He's going to have to respect these guys. I think Van Dijk's going to play, and then Kwanzaa's going to be next to him, and then you might have, Gomez out wide and Shimikas on the left. I don't think he's going to try and disrupt that defensive line too much. He's going to need that vocal leader, that the captain, to marshal them through the game. So I think the back line isn't going to be disrupted too much, other than to, maybe give Kanate a rest, given his fragility last season, in the last few seasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting looking at the last time that we played in the League Cup against West Ham, that 5-1 win, really, really good. The back five was Kelleher. Obviously, we had Alisson at that point in time, I think I remember. Conor Bradley played, Kwanzaa, Gomez, and Tsimikas. That was his last time, the back five, the back four, whatever way you want to look at it. There's an interesting thought that it seems like he's not afraid to make the changes if needed. But Tosin, what do you think for goalkeeper? We'll keep the back four conversation just for the next part. But who would you go for as your goalkeeper?
Jaros.
Yeah.
It's got to be Jaros because I've tried to evaluate. Quivi obviously now is the first choice tentatively, at least till Ali comes back. We don't know when Ali's gonna be back, but it looks like for now this is how it is. So I'd go for Jaros in goal. I strongly believe that people sort of underestimate what Jarosz can do. I think he's got a good control, a good command of the defense, and I know a lot of people will say you're talking about preseason. Is that what we're talking about now? This is, this is the final. This is the EFL Cup we're talking about. We're talking Brighton is a league team, but I think Jarosz would also need to get a bit of confidence so that he knows that his efforts have been noticed as well. So I'd go for Jarosz if I'm the one. Give him a bit of confidence, let him get in and have a taste of the occasion. Gomez at right back. And just like Stitches said, I want to believe Robertson has got a chance to redeem himself. He stunk this season. Really stunk the joint. It's been horrible. Let's be real, guys. It's been a disaster. That's not Robertson's level. He's found a way. He's found new ways to be bad every week, and I can't believe I'm saying it. I mean, he's inventing new ways to self-implode. He's inventing new ways to defend badly. I mean, he can't track his marker. Robo is now easy pickings in 1v1. So, I mean, I think he needs an opportunity to redeem himself. Although deep down, I'd like to go for Costa Simicas, but I'd say that you got to play Robo there. That if I have my way, I'd say no, don't play Van Dijk or Konate. If I have my way, I'd say rest both guys. Let's see what happens with other players in the team. But I mean, maybe you play Konate, maybe, but I think left to me, just sort of give it a break there, let the two of them rest. I'll be honest, I'd forgo this game for the league game at the weekend in terms of looking at it in the big picture, but people are going to talk about building cultures and how it's important for the players to be locked in and just carry on the momentum. So it's understandable if people think that one of Konate or Van Dijk should play, but I'd not play the two of them at the same time, especially Konate, because it's a very fragile player.
Yeah, I think the key person in this back four, strangely, we're not talking about Van Dijk, we're not talking about Robbo, in my head anyway. I think the key person is whether if Conor Bradley's going to be fit, Stu. If Conor Bradley's fit, that kind of answers Tossing's question, which allows both Van Dijk and Konate to be rested. However, if he's not, what's the answer? Is it Joe Gomez? Is it Trent? Big call to play Trent in such a big game. Well, in a game where we don't really need to be testing him, or someone like Endo. Endo's got previous where he's played at right back in previous clubs and whatnot. But
yeah,
go for it, Steve.
I think the problem with Bradley is he's only just come back into fitness, back into training the last couple of days. So touch and go with him, but I think the back four would be the same that we'd had for West Ham game anyway. So that's what I can see if everybody's fit. If Bradley's not fit, then yeah, obviously Trent will probably start, I would say. I can't see him putting the likes of Endo or anybody back and right back. Not when you got Trent in the side. At the end of the day, he's still a player for the club, and playing him in the League Cup, yeah, so what? Doesn't matter. Left back wise, I understand the opinions of possibly putting Robbo in, but to be honest, it's kind of Simicas's cup, really, when you think about it.
He was really good in the last game, wasn't he? Really, in his last game, won man of the match, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was. And for pretty much the last couple of years, he's been the left back of the Carabao Cup.
Yeah.
For the most part. So I can't see that changing either. I think Robbo will get arrested. He'll probably start the Brighton game on the weekend. But I think if anybody's fit, it's going to be Bradley, Kwanzaa, Gomez, Simicas. Same as West Ham.
Stitches, do you agree with that? If everyone's fit,
If
you go
everyone's
with that.
fit, I would. I don't think you see Trent play 2 games in a row like this, or 3 even. Because I mean, if we're reading correctly, he's been carrying a bit of a knock, hasn't he? Bit of a muscular injury that they're managing.
There was talk just before the Arsenal game, wasn't there? Yeah,
exactly. So I think he's more likely to play on the weekend and not play tomorrow night. So I wasn't aware that Bradley was even in contention. I thought he was still on the injury list. But if Bradley's an option, he would definitely get some minutes. I think what Slot is really good at doing is perhaps picking players and starting them, but then taking them off during the match, far earlier than we used to see on the clock. So even if Bradley starts, it might be a switch where someone else drops in into centre back and Gomez goes out wide, potentially. I just think it depends how seriously he wants to take this game. As I said, I think Slot does want to build that culture. He wants to keep the momentum going. So I'd be very surprised. I'm saying he plays like Virgil. I think Virgil plays at least 60 minutes, probably starts the game and maybe gets taken off in preparation for the weekend if we have to play Gomez out wide, because then it'll be Quansah. I think Quansah's a shoe-in, and it's really who's going to be next to Quansah in that position. Those are my thoughts. I think, and just to touch on Robertson again, I think we might see a changing of the guard by the selection tomorrow night. I think if Robertson plays tomorrow night, then it's likely that Shimikas is going to play the match on the weekend, which may mean a swapping of roles. Because I wouldn't say he stunk up the place, but there's something definitely missing in Robertson's game at the moment. I think he absolutely got ripped a new one by Saka, but in that move. But actually, if you remove that, there were 1 or 2 hairy moments, but he came through it after such a pivotal big mistake. So, he still has the mentality. I just think physically he might have lost a yard. And players are able to outpace him quite easily. So yeah,
who it reminded me of?
What's that?
Fabinho.
When his legs went.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's exact same situation.
Yeah,
and it's kind of sad to see a little bit. I completely agree with you. He has lost a yard, and you can see it. And Saka made that abundantly clear on the weekend because, as you say, he ripped him to shreds, and there's no hiding from it at all. So, yeah, it's one of those things I think Slot is definitely going to address, which we all said should have been addressed in the summer, but still.
Yeah. So I don't think it's a physical thing with Robbo, and what I've been saying for about 18 months amongst us. Is that it's all up here with Robbo. He's very, very front-footed defender at left back. We've seen a number of occasions where he goes flying in, going towards the halfway line and then missing the tackle, and then that's left Virgil alone essentially to cover for that wide space. And then what happened on the weekend kind of just reiterates what I've been thinking. I think the mind isn't as quick as the body, and with Robbo, I think it is time that we start thinking about phasing them out. It's not a case of we just drop him and that's it, that's the end of him. But I'm seeing more Alberto Moreno than prime Robbo for the last kind of year and a bit. So I think it's time that we do start looking at a left back, and I'm sure we are. I'm sure we will be looking at. I would love to get that Benfica lad, but whether Man United have buy back, and whether because they've got this new Portuguese manager who's got credit in the bank in that respect. Maybe there's something there that he would like to come over, but United go through fullbacks like but who cares anyway. So that's the defense. Let's talk about the midfield. The midfield's another interesting equation. I think the word the name Endo's being banded around. Tossing. What would you do for the midfield? Endo, Jones, Soboslai is your midfield, or would you go change it a little bit more, bring in Tyler Morton, or go for more experience? I think you said McAllister still shouldn't play. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd go for Endo. Obviously, I think he's definitely going to start tomorrow. It's pretty clear. I think you would also read it from the body language of Arna that Endo's definitely going to start tomorrow. I think Dom has got to play. He didn't get a lot of minutes at the weekend, maybe with an eye on this game, and I think he also has got something to prove. Um, he's really not had a good start to the season. There are a lot of guys that I like on the team that I don't know. They've just been playing terrible this season, and I've sort of run out of excuses for them. Dom has struggled. I don't know why. Maybe because we use the ball more now and we don't press as much as we do before. So
I think it's
maybe
the opposite. I think it's the opposite with Dom. I think it's more the case that he initiates the press, so he's
yes,
asked to do the legwork. So it's basically the way I see it, it's like an inverted Genie Wijnaldum, whereas Genie
yeah,
was very much a controller and very press resistant, but
yeah,
did all the running compared to Hendo. Whereas with Dom, it's very much the opposite, where he's attacking and more like Lallana. When Lallana was in his prime
yeah.
playing Liverpool, he initiated and he did a lot of the running. And I don't think that in terms of the numbers, they're too far off from each other. So I think that's what it is with Dom.
And I
I
think
agree
on the
with you.
weekend, sorry, just to say,
Go
just to
on,
add
go
on
on.
Dom, on the weekend, it actually showed you why Dom's in the team. That midfield missed his legs. The enterprise work rate that he puts in, I think people forget that because we're all focused on, the goal scoring aspect, what he's doing on the ball, which isn't at the high levels that we know he's capable of right now. But it's one of those situations where you don't see what he does until he's not there. And
Yeah,
that the legs are definitely missed in midfield against Arsenal, and I think they'll be brought back for this game because we're going to need them.
Agreed.
yeah, I agree
Agreed.
100%. Go on,
Sorry,
Charlie.
Justin.
Go on,
You no
Charlie.
no no. I was just agreeing. You carry on. You come back to your point there about the midfield.
Yeah, so I think that's the problem because he's a guy that I really like because of his running abilities. And so I thought maybe now that we're a bit more in terms of a controlling team, maybe he would adapt a bit to the fact that now we see more of the ball, but he struggled. So that's why I'm a bit skeptical about whether he plays more. But I think he will definitely play because he didn't play much of the weekend. And if we've got two guys who are running, Slot likes to hold the ball a lot, so obviously Jones is going to be there to help us set the tempo, keep the ball ticking in midfield, and make sure we have control. I also sort of think maybe the gyro might not get a rest. He might probably want to play Ryan again, but I think he will want to rest him for the Premier League game of the weekend. So it might be Curtis who plays, and then maybe he brings on Gravenberg in the second half. But for me, I think my ideal midfield for this game, if we're projecting to the weekend, would be Maka, Gravenberg, and Dom in midfield because of the profile of the midfielders they have. Um, they've got interesting midfielders. Bayeba, just like we mentioned before, is in the midfield. They've got Enciso in the midfield as well, who perhaps will play as a 10 behind the striker. So if you got those two midfielders and the third wheel that they might possibly have in the midfield is the one that's up in the air. Maybe they go for Vifa as well. It's a bit of a reunion between him and Slot. So I don't know. We'll also sort of have a handle and a grip on that in terms of how it goes in midfield. But for me, I'd say I'd predict that it would be Gravenberg. Sorry, it would be Endo, Dom, and possibly Curtis Jones. Although in an ideal world, I'd love Tyler Morton to play. I love the kid. I think he's a good footballer. I think he's got what it takes. And boy, oh boy, are we missing Harvey Elliott? Because now, if Harvey was around, the midfield obviously picks itself. You say it's Elliot, Dom and Endo.
Really, really good points there, Stu. Do you think differently in terms of that midfield? Would you do things? Right, I'm gonna base it to the next part, to the attackers. Is there a hole where Dominic Szoboszlai could play in Mohamed Salah's position on the right hand side of the attack, which then allows for a little bit more solidity with Tyler Morton and Endo being the double pivot, and then allowing Jones to come in? Is that an opportunity for this team?
Possibly, but I think Zobo especially prefers to play off the left, not the right. I think he likes to cut in quite a lot. Midfield wise, yeah, I mean, I think Endo has been confirmed anyway that he's definitely going to start. Slot's already said that, so that's a shoe-in. No argument about that. The other two midfield slots, personally, I would like to see. I've already said, like, so Grav deserves a rest. Maka, I think, deserves a rest as well. He's had a couple of niggly injuries as well, so I think he deserves to just sit one out. Starting Szoboszlai, I think, is pretty much a given for tomorrow's game, and I would say Jones, but like Tossin said as well, I would love to see him take a chance on Tyler Morton for tomorrow instead, and maybe do Tyler Morton, Endo, and Curtis Jones in the midfield three, just to see how that goes. Who knows? Whether Szoboszlai is an interesting one, though. He will kick in. He's got way too much talent not to kick in properly. I think he's just Slot's trying to find that right role for him, and it's almost there. It's almost there. You're right. It's the legs he's got. That box to box running that he can do is incredible. And we did miss it a little bit on the weekend. I will admit that. Jones can sort of do that as well, but Zob's a little bit more athletic, I think, with it. So, yeah, this is a tough one. In an ideal world, I would like to see Endo, Jones, and Tyler Morton start, but personally, I think it's going to be, in realistic terms, Zob, Jones, and Endo in central midfield.
And I'll stick with you. Who do you think will play up front?
Nunes will definitely start, and again, I would not be surprised if Salah got a rest on this one, and it's Diaz and Gakpo. To be honest, my mind's gone blank. I don't know what other options we've really got for out in the wide because Jota and Chiesa are injured. So it's unless he really does want to take a chance, sticks a couple more of the youngsters on the bench, and somebody like the new lad that we got in for the under-18s, that Rio Naguma, I think is it. He's absolutely lining it up in the under-18s at the moment. So, hey, why not stick him on the bench? You never know.
Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting. I think it's a big squad with the youngsters. It might be a good opportunity to rest some players. Stitches, who would you go for up front?
So who I'd go for versus who he's going to play. In my opinion, he plays Salah. Starts Salah. He won't finish the game, but I think he'll start. I think Diaz will get another outing because he didn't really get many minutes on the weekend. And I think Nunes is going to get a start. I think Gakpo potentially might miss out because Diaz is playing. Or if he doesn't play Salah, then Gakpo will play. And it will be Nunes, Gakpo, and Diaz. I think we've got some youngsters that may be on the bench. Trey Naoni may get a spot on the bench. You know, he's been kind of doing so well and pushing for that. But again, I don't see him playing the full match. I think he either gets introduced when things are a little bit more comfortable or, you know, towards the end of the game. Or we get one of the Morton playing in midfield, which frees up Zabodzlai to join the attacking line. I think that's the options that we'll probably go for. And I think, look, the options that we get will be very different from what he's going to do on the weekend. in my options. That's the thing to note. And I think regardless of how we line up, there's going to be some tweaks that he's going to make in terms of the roles that people are going to play. And I think that's really the magic sauce. That's going to be where, the match becomes hugely interesting to see what he asks these players to do.
Yeah, no, great, thank you. And Tosin, your front attacking line, who would you go for?
Contrary to popular belief, I don't want Salah to play. In fact, if I have my ways, none of the guys who will play the weekend will play. But inadvertently, that's impossible because Adana said today in his pre-match press conference something that was really worrying for me, and I began to think, if Chiesa is not available, and you don't know when he's going to be back, that's not good news. That's not something that is good for the rest of the team. So obviously, Darwin is going to get a look in. You probably would go Cody to start this game because you obviously know he's the go-to guy. But now that we're down Chiesa and Jota, that's where the problem is. And left to me, I'd say you perhaps have to look in the academy for this one, maybe, and just maybe give someone a chance. I just like Klopp always done, he's always gone with the kids in this competition. So I'd sprinkle a bit of the kids there. I'm trying to look at who would be the perfect fit in this particular context now, in the grand scheme of things, on the left and the right hand side of attack, because the person is someone who's got to coming straight for Salah. But just like Stitches said, Salah might want to play and he would want to maybe get a few minutes in. But I think ideally for me, I wouldn't want him to play. So maybe like a now, before I was saying that we had a bit of options, but now it's really sort of eating me now that we don't have options except from some of the kids in the academy, and I'm trying to look at one that I think could fit in. A couple of them are gone on loan. I'm trying to look at someone that I think makes sense logically, but if you're probably not able to get maybe a Kate Gordon in.
It's a tough one, isn't it? It's a tough one.
It's a tough one. I'd say play Hakbo, Darwin, and Kate Gordon. There, because you also sort of give Kate an opportunity to say, let's see what he's got. I know he's a fantastic youngster, but he's on loan as well. That's not a problem. You sent him on loan, so that's also an issue. So I think you sent Gordon on loan, you sent Doak on loan, so it sort of limits things a bit. But maybe he plays Salah as well, just like Stitches wants him to. But I don't want him to play Salah.
Yeah,
it's not so much I want him to play. It's just I just think Salah is a machine, and if you're short on options, he's gonna play him. I think Salah starts most games. I just think that what he's been doing with him this season has been quite astute, which is to take him off and replace him with other players. It's been Chiesa, but obviously with the problems that Chiesa's going through at this moment, I think it's prudent that they take their time with him. He's obviously coming off the back of a very serious injury, and your body's liable to break down on that recovery, on coming back. So taking it easy and building him up for him to, come back in and perhaps be more available in the future rather than rushing him in now, I think it's a prudent thing to do. I don't have concerns that he'll be back. I think he's young enough. And with the medical science that we have now, that we can manage that and monitor that properly. So I have no concerns there. I just think this game has come a bit quickly for us. I agree that Cade Gordon should be an option. So I think that's a good option. It's a great time to blood the youngster. I just don't want us to go into this match thinking that Slot is going to be like Klopp in regards to diving into the academy and going wholesale changes with them. It won't be that. I think maximum 2 youngsters in the starting lineup at any given time. You know, for an opposition of this caliber, I think if we were playing a team maybe, you know, from Championship or Division 1, then, you know, you may see more of the youngsters get an opportunity, but not a, what are they, in the top 5, top 6 in the Premier League right now? You know, this is a top of the table clash by all intents and purposes, so it has to be treated accordingly.
Yeah, no, I agree. We're coming to the end. I'm just going to ask really, really quickly before we finish up, and everyone in the chat, please just let me know what your thoughts are. Predicted scores for tomorrow. You know, Stu, I'll go quickly. You know, what do you think? Is it going to be in first 90 minutes, or is it going to be extra time and penalties?
No, 3-1 Liverpool.
Very good. Stitches?
I will go 2-1, just to be a bit more conservative. Which I never, ever am, by the way, just to put that
out there. Great. And Tosin?
Sorry, you were never conservative, Stitches. Is that what you said and you went for 2-1?
Never conservative politically. that's what I meant. Yeah. So that's what I was referring to. But yeah, I mean, as far as the scoreline is, I just think this is a far tougher game than what we think, and I believe Brighton are going to take it seriously, and I think we need to as well. And I think they have enough threat, and there's going to be enough changes in our defensive lineup that we may be slightly vulnerable and not necessarily as tight knit at the back as we have been. But that being said, I think we carry enough threat ourselves to cause them problems, and I don't think defensively they have all of their soldiers in there, you know, to be able to keep us out. So I think I'm leaning to a 3-1, but I'm going to go 2-1 just to be, you know, on the safe side.
Very positive, very good. Tosin, what are you going to go for?
Yeah, same. I'd probably go. I'd go 3-1. I think I'd go Stu's way and go 3-1. I think we score first. They pull one back, and then in the second half we turn on the screws, score 2 quick fire goals, and from the 70th minute we just see the game out.
Cool. All right, we'll go with that. I'm going to go with 1-1. And then penalties, and Jas is going to be a hero. And then he writes himself into history. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to go. Just mark my words. I've got it recorded now. You can bring it back to me tomorrow after we win, and Yaros saves all these penalties because he's just a world class number 3. And you know, he's probably the best number 3 goalkeeper in the world. So who knows?
I agree.
Good. Right. I'm gonna end it there. I think it's been a really, really fantastic chat. I love the comments that we've had from everyone there. Just want to say thank you for everyone that joined today. Tosin, Stu, Stitches, love having you on the show tonight. I'm really looking forward to talking to you guys once again. Yeah, so Jay, there was a question about British Standard Time for our stream. So that's a really good question. So if it's 9 p.m. EST, the GMT, 1 o'clock in the morning, UK time. So if you're interested, if you're around, please just join that stream. And then I think they actually go back to normal times next week. But yeah, just want to say thank you for everyone. Thank you for the panel, and up the Reds. Let's get a win tomorrow. Up the Eros.
Yeah. All right.